What's going on, people, and welcome back to another episode of the 5 Takeaways, where we take a look at the weekend's games and see what we can take away for it, positive or negative. We lost 3-0 for the second time on the bounce in the Premier League yesterday against Chelsea at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and let's get straight into it with the first takeaway is hold the press.
So Spurs, they worked very hard yesterday. I don't think anyone's doubting, especially in the first half. They worked very, very hard to try and put Chelsea under pressure. They actually outpressed Chelsea 178 to 114 in presses. But because the pressing structure is still not where it should be, Spurs had a success rate of 27.5%, whereas Chelsea had a success rate of 38% with their presses, which is a big difference. The
success rate was at half time as opposed to the final whistle.
Yeah, it's hard to know. They don't have full stats on that. So despite Spurs outpressing Chelsea by 64 times, they only had 6 more successful presses. So there's definitely a lack of effectiveness when they're pressing the opposition to when Chelsea are pressing us. And that's definitely leads to the pressing structure, which needs a lot of work because we're outpressing the opposition, but we're not very effective with it. We're doing a lot of work for no reward. And Chelsea didn't press us anywhere near as much as we pressed them, but they were a lot more successful, effective when they're pressing, and that showed.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we've been talking about the last few weeks as well, is how we're not hunting in packs. We're not pressing as a team. We're pressing very individually. And you're never going to find success like that. If you're going to find success playing a pressing game, you have to press in packs. You have to. And that's what Chelsea did well, and that's what we're not doing well.
Definitely.
So let's move on to the second takeaway, and that is the old DALLY.
So DELE, interestingly enough, he leads the Premier League in pressures this season. No one has pressed anyone more than Dele Alli in the Premier League this season. However, he's also in the top 10 for dispossessed players, and he's also made 0 key passes this whole season, which is a pass that leads to an attempt on goal. And that goes to show, I think he's really struggling on the ball to kind of impact the game and get involved. And I think with all the decent work or good work he's doing off the ball, I don't think it suits him when he's in the middle of the park in possession. He doesn't know what to do with it, I don't think. And when he tries things, he gets dispossessed, hence why he's in the top 10. You know, when you look at the other players in the top 10, there's, say, Maximan, there's Richarlison, there's attacking players who are in the final third. You don't get centre mids in the top 10 for dispossessed. That's a very worrying stat for me. And he needs to be much more careful on the ball. But 0 key passes as well shows that when we're asking him to get more involved in the attack, he's not really using the ball well as well when he gets the opportunity. So needs a lot of work, Dele.
Yeah, and who's everyone would call Dele Alli an attacking player. And right now, from this season, we don't actually know what Dele's trying to do, to be honest. I mean, is he a hard man in midfield? Is he a guy trying to help the attack with the link to the midfield to the attack? I'm really not sure what we're trying to make Dele into, and we're not really playing to his strengths, are we? And I think that we need to have a look at how we are using Dele Alli and try and find some alternatives or a way around it, because it's just not working at the moment, in my opinion. He's getting
a bit lost, isn't he?
Yeah. Let's move over to the third takeaway, and that is passing the buck.
So looking at Tottenham, and what I'm looking at, for all the good possession and all the good pressing we had in the first half, what were we able to do? We weren't really able to do any in terms of shots on goal. We had 6 shots in that first half, but we only had an XG of 0.66. But looking at key passes, right, we had 6 key passes throughout the game. So only 6 passes that led to an attempt on goal. Chelsea had 18. And if you look at the stats overall since the start of the season, Spurs ranked bottom of the league for key passes, which shows a struggle to really build play up to create chances and build key moments in play that are able to open up space and create shots on goal. Not only are we bottom of the league for key passes, we're also 3rd highest for key passes conceded as well. So we're struggling to kind of prevent the opposition from being able to open us up and get shots on goal. Lo Celso was our highest for key passes yesterday with 2 key passes. He was our highest. Chelsea had 4 players with more than 2 key passes. Wow. So that goes to show our struggles of really trying to build up a head of steam.
Yeah, and we've said it all along, our problem so far we've had a massive creative block in this team so far. Christian Eriksen was absolutely insane in what he was doing at Spurs, and maybe he was undervalued by a lot of Spurs fans before he left the club. But yeah, it's a massive problem, and again, we need to find a way around it, and Nuno needs to really look at the way he's setting up teams structurally to find ways around our creative block at the moment. But let's move over to our 4th takeaway, and that is the depth problem.
So the lack of depth was evident yesterday. I know we had Bergwijn and Lucas both injured, but with Chelsea struggling yesterday at 0-0, obviously they're in the game, but Spurs definitely getting better at the midfield battle. They had Kante to come on, change the game, and then when they needed an extra attacking impetus, they had Timo Werner to bring on, whereas Spurs had to rely on youngsters in Ollie Skip and Brian Hill to come on and try and change the game for Tottenham in a positive direction, especially at 2-0 down.
When one of them is a defensive midfielder.
And one of them, exactly. So I think that was also, you could see the difference in the playing quality, in the depth of field that Spurs had to deal with compared to Chelsea. And you got to think of people like Hakim Ziyech as well. He's available for Chelsea to bring on. Like, they've just got a different level of depth to Tottenham, who even if you had Bergwijn and Lucas, still not nowhere near the quality of our rivals, and that's probably going to hold us back.
You know what I mean? Look, I've got the Chelsea bench in front of me. I'll just read it out to you. It's the goalkeeper, then Chabala, Ben Chilwell, Reece James, N'Golo Kante, Saul Niguez, Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner, and Callum Hudson-Odoi. I mean, how many of them get into our starting 11?
Chilwell starts for us. Saul, at his best, starts for us.
Kante, obviously. Reece James.
Reece James starts for us.
You know what I mean? So Hakim Ziyech will probably get a lot of the minutes if he was at us.
Oh, I think he would start on the right-hand side, probably.
So there you go. Timo Werner, you would probably say he would see a lot of minutes if he was at us.
Mm-hmm.
And Callum Hudson-Odoi, he'd probably see quite a few minutes if he was at us as well.
So their whole bench
gets into our team, and that's telling. That is telling. And, cast your mind back to peak Pochettino, when we didn't kick on. So thank you very much, Daniel
Does
Levy.
any of our bench even make their bench?
Dane Scarlett doesn't. Golini probably does, because they had Marcus
maybe Golini.
Betteleni in goal. Matt Doherty doesn't. Joe Rodon doesn't. Davinson Sanchez probably does, ahead of Trevor Chabala. Ben Davis doesn't. Winks doesn't. Ollie Skip doesn't. And Brian Hill probably doesn't either. So
doesn't even make their bench. Does he make their reserves?
But that's what it is, and the ownership and the hierarchy of this football club have put us in this situation.
So, I'm saying we can add Lucas and Bergwijn to that. It doesn't really change much, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So,
all right, let's move on to the final takeaway, the 5th takeaway, and that is the Nuno blueprint.
Yeah, so in the first half, I think we saw a difference in how we were being on the front foot compared to maybe how we were against Palace last week and a few other games. And I think we have to take that blueprint, and yes, it all unfolded in the second half, but we have to take that blueprint forward and keep it and not lose what we had and not think that because it unraveled, it's the wrong way to approach the game. So I really believe it is. In this game, we had more successful dribbles than we've had in any other game, more progressive carries than we had in any other game as well, and more progressive, and second only to Watford for progressive passes as well. So we need to make sure we're sustaining that over a 90-minute period. Although we did well, we only had 0.66 XG in that first half, so we need to make sure that we're making the most out of the possession. But I think there are positive signs of how we can move forward, and we're not going. Hopefully, when we play against teams who aren't as good as Chelsea, we can make the most out of what we created. And when players are more fit as well, when we've got everyone more gelled together, more time within the squad, maybe positive outcomes can come from that style of play. That's the positive thing. So that's all I got to say on that one.
Yeah, and I do think signs are good. The first 45 minutes. I mean, it did remind me a bit of that Man City game, how we were just like completely all over them, non-stop running, pressing as a team. It looked really good in that first 45 minutes, but you are coming up against structurally the best defensive team in the league, if not Europe at the moment. So it was always going to be difficult, and what compounded to that was the what happened on the international break with the 3 players coming back and having to quarantine in Croatia, all the players picking up the injuries, 2 players picking up injuries in our last game as well against Rennes. So I do think that if we had a fully fit squad, or at least the personnel that were playing that were fully fit, I felt like we could have gone for much longer and maybe we would have got something positive out of the game. But what happened on the international break and everything like that made it an uphill and losing battle, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And, you know, you saw in that Man City game, we kept it up for 90 minutes and we were at full pelt that game. That's when we had a fresh squad. Now we don't have a fresh squad. You're seeing the flaws in it.
Yeah, and hopefully we can build that up again, and we need it for the North London derby, that's for sure.
Yeah, tell me about it. All right, so those are our 5 takeaways. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts regarding our takeaways, or let me know your takeaways in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.